Hey guys! So as promised, I've got a resin video for you this week. For this project, I'm going to be using these 3 silicone profile molds. Full disclosure, I'm certainly not a resin expert or anything since I'm self-taught and it's very much just a hobby. So a lot of my resin projects have been trial and error and very slow improvement over the years I've been working with it. As with so many things, I find that there's always so much more to learn, even if it seems simple at the first glance. Anyway, let's get started. Along with the silicone molds, I'll also be using a 2-part epoxy resin. Normally I'd be using a quick set epoxy resin because me and long waiting times just don't mix, but there was a mix up with my latest resin order, and so this time I used, do you know what? Can't remember what the resin is since it's not my usual one, but I will link it in the description box below and probably pop a title in here somewhere. I struggled with it at first, but I've since come to appreciate it, and I'll explain why during the video. As well as the molds and resin, I also have a silicone cup which can be reused, of course, saves on the disposable plastic ones. Some gloves and a filtration mask which I left in the other room when I recorded this. I'll have a long running list of materials along the screen and of course in the description box below. This epoxy resin is a 2-part mix with a 1:1 ratio, which makes measuring it out a doddle. Unlike my preferred type, it has a 40-minute work time and a 24 to 48 hour cure time. I usually like to use quick set resins with shorter work times and faster curing, mostly because I'm impatient, but it also means I can fit a project into a single day. So I can pour a project in the morning and it's ready to demold by the afternoon or at the latest that evening. But the advantage of a longer work time is that you don't have to rush when embedding things into the resin, which worked out well for this design actually. So getting started, I measured out equal parts of side A and B and mixed them slowly for 3 minutes or so with a stirring stick, trying not to introduce too many bubbles into the resin. Bubbles are of course inevitable during the mixing process, but these will be dealt with shortly. Once I finished mixing, making sure to scrape the sides and the bottom of the cup, I left the cup to sit for about 5 minutes or so to let the larger bubbles rise to the surface. After 5 minutes, most of the obvious bubbles have risen to the top. Here's where I can then use my heat gun to pop the bubbles that are on the surface. I then did this once more to get all the bubbles I could and get the resin to be as crystal clear as possible. Incidentally, you can just wipe off the excess resin on the popsicle stick and it can be reused multiple times for multiple projects. Quick tip. Just keep it with the rest of your resin tools and don't mix them up with the non-resin related tools. Next, I poured the resin into each mold, making sure to fully cover the bottom of each. I actually surprised myself here because I managed to mix the exact right amount of resin needed. Yay, go me! I usually keep an extra mold or 2 nearby, just in case I mix too much, but I nailed it this time, and what's more, I have video evidence to prove it. Yay! That's never happened before, so yes, I've got proof. Anyway, I then used a toothpick or cocktail stick, depending on which one you prefer, to go around the edges of each mold, making sure to pop any bubbles that may have been created at the edges of the mold. Again, you can wipe off the toothpick / cocktail stick and reuse it another time. I then placed some split rings into the molds because I want these ladies to be wearing earrings, or at least look like it. This is the first time I'm actually doing this. I thought about it when I did a test pour a few weeks ago, but haven't tried it up until now. So I chose different sizes and metals based on each mold. So that will be the silver, gold and rose gold split rings. I then left them again for a few minutes to let the resin set up for just a bit more. Not fully set obviously, but just so that the split rings can get a chance to sink to the bottom and stay in place, and for the resin to get more tacky. After letting the resin sit long enough to thicken up a bit, it's time for the fun part. That's adding the glitter. Oh, I love this part so much. I have quite a few types of glitter, but for the first mold I wanted to do a rainbow afro. I'll show this part in fast forward for you, but as a reminder, everything that I used is in the description box below, so just enjoy the creative process. After, I then left the resin to set up a bit more again, and I added the other side of the earrings. I needed to do that before I forgot which one was which. Because knowing my luck, I would get them wrong and I'd have two different sets of earrings. I mean, it wouldn't be the end of the world, but it would annoy me to no extent. I'd just be so annoyed with myself if I did that. So after around 18 hours or so, I mixed a new batch of resin, off camera this time, and popped the bubbles. I then just poured it into each mold until they were close to full. I checked for more bubbles after the pour and now have to leave them to fully cure. Time to step away from the camera for at least 24 hours. It's the waiting time that gets me, it really is. So yeah, I have to leave them for a full 24 hours. Sometimes I leave them for 48 hours, but because we're going to be doing a UV pouring later on, I'm going to leave it for 24 hours. So this is going to be left overnight and we'll come back for the demold.
"24 hours later."
It's been an excruciating 24 hours, but thankfully I found things to do to keep myself busy and not think about it. But anyway, we're back and ready for the demold. I love this part as well. Sometimes it's a bit nerve-wracking because you don't know if you've made a mistake until you get to this point. But since this is glitter, it's probably not going to be too bad if I've messed up a little bit. But when I use letters, it's a whole different production of checking, double checking and triple checking the letters are going to be the right way up and spelled correctly, obviously. Here we go. Oh, I love them so much. The camera doesn't really do them justice, unfortunately, because they are a rainbow hollow type glitter, but seeing them catch the light, oh, the colours are just quite distinct. and so beautiful. Anyway, I'm just gonna finish demolding and move on to the next step. For the next step, I'm going to even out the surfaces of each one now by sanding down the rough edges. I don't usually sand in this room, I'm just going to do it for the camera, but I will finish off with wet sanding and be back to do a final coat with UV resin. But yeah, the reason I don't sand in this room is because I don't want to get any dust or anything around with there's my yarn around everywhere, and I really don't want it to get dusty, so I will be moving this to a different area, but this is just to show you the sanding process. So one of the molds, the rose gold one, is the only one with some texture in the hair. So I'll be filling that with some rose gold paint to add a little detail. So basically I'm just using some rose gold acrylic paint to put in the little tiny divots and then wiping away the surface with a wet wipe, and then that's it, it's free to go, just wait for it to dry. Next, I'll be then moving on to resurfacing the other side with the UV resin. So here we go. Finally, I'm just adding a final layer of UV resin to the sanded side to bring back that gloss finish. I'll cure it in the UV lamp and they will be ready to be attached to their respective keychains. So we're nearly finished, guys. You're probably asking why I'm not using the 2-part epoxy resin to do this, because you can do that, but I just don't want to wait that long. And with the UV resin, it's quicker, it's faster, and I can literally get from resin to keychain and it's done in under 10 minutes, rather than having to wait for 48 hours for everything to cure. Those are my reasons. So before we get to the final reveal, I'd just like to say thank you for watching, and of course if you'd like to see more, then please like, share, comment and even consider subscribing. If you're feeling generous, then also please consider buying me a cup of coffee on Ko-fi. The link to my Ko-fi page will be included in the description box below, and any and all donations will be greatly appreciated. Also, don't forget to hit that bell button to be notified whenever I upload a new video. And with that, enjoy the beauty shots and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!